Can you give us a little bit of a context? Like, where did you go to school?
Yeah, I went to Forest Hills Elementary, and before that, I went to Touchstone, which is a private school. And yeah, it was. I can start off with Touchstone just because that was my first kind of understanding. It's a small, like it's since grown, but I think at the time it only when I first went there, it like only went up to I want to say like third or fourth grade, and they might have like a middle school now. I have no idea, but we had small. There's like one class per grade and all that, so it's like a small environment. It's and one of the it's not my first memory, but it's a memory my mother has very vividly, apparently, is that she got called to school one day because I guess like I was playing in the sandbox with some other kids, and then for whatever reason they just started like pelting me with sand and being like, chocolate chip cookie, take that, chocolate chip cookie, take that. So yeah, needless to say, my mom remembers it very vividly. I think I kind of have like blocked some of that out of my consciousness, to be honest with you. But there's a lot of strange incidents like that, or or things that not so much as controversial as just like circumstance stuff. Like one of my first friends was this girl named Maggie, and like we were kind of, I think we bonded because we were like the quote unquote the different kids, because I was black and she had three fingers on one hand, so we were the odd couple or whatever. And then what else? Yeah, kindergarten was another interesting, a lot of interesting times. But I just vividly remember the reading lessons because we started off with like these Bob books and everything, and what was weird is like the teacher, there was two brown students in the class. There was myself, and then there was an exchange student from Saudi Arabia named Mohammed. And during the reading lessons, the teacher would just separate us off into like the corner, so we'd be he basically have us play with blocks, and we're kindergartners. Like you're like, oh, we don't have to do the lesson, we get to play with blocks. Like cool, whatever. Like you're not going to question that
Yeah.
as a tiny child. But then comes, because they do like the reading night to show off the kids' progress for all the parents, right? And it's a big event. So of course another moment that I don't remember specifically, but once again my mother remembers very vividly, is just me getting up there and being basically illiterate in front of all the
Wow.
parents of the class and all the other kids, because we weren't doing
Yeah.
we weren't actually doing the reading. We were just in there playing with blocks, and the teacher did that, and it's just one of those like you think back and it's like, why? Like that's,
Yeah.
I mean, we pay, because this is a private school. Like we pay. I mean, it would be, first off, it would be absolutely wrong and horrible if we were at a public school too. But it's like we pay tuition for this,
Yeah.
so not just are you violating us for whatever vindictive reason, but like we've done the quote unquote American capitalist thing of paying for this service that you are just not providing for us.
Mm.
And so I will say though that I guess one of the things that came from that is that like my parents and my mom in particular had to just spend all this, she was a principal at Ockley Green at the time, so she's spending you know God knows how many hours just doing her job, and then she also has to come home and pour over these, it started off with Bob books and
Wow.
all that with me. And so I guess the flip side of it is while I was kind of put at a deficit, on one hand, I also kind of got an extra, incentive to, know the importance of reading and really get, and accelerate that, because once it was clear, it's like, oh, the teacher is not going to help me with this. The teacher's not going to do her job on this. Then it's like, okay, then it's going to be at, my parents' pace.
Mm-hmm.
And so, funny follow-up story to that, that same teacher at like the end of the year also recommended to my parents that I be held back. Just like, that's special, because you actively did that.
Yeah.
And then so yeah, that's the type of things.
Wow.
It's funny because, you know, my parents moved. I said my parents, my dad went to the University of Oregon and my mom was in New Jersey. And like they met in, I want to say about 84 and then got married and moved out to, dad convinced my mom to move out to Oregon in 86. And, you know, we were going to, basically they were going to live in either southeast Portland or southwest Portland or Lake Oswego, basically because, you know, property tax and insurance rates were just lower in these areas than kind of, you know, other places, and specifically places with like higher concentrations of more people like me. And, you know, that's an interesting thing in itself, but also the other big really incentive of LO was the schools. Like they have these, you know, great reputation schools, you know, connections you make at them. So we did that, and, you know, we moved here for the schools, and it's like the big thing kind of, you know, screwing me over
Yeah.
was the schools, and specifically, you know, this teacher. But like I said, the flip side of it is that I kind of got an extra incentive to, you know, extra push on the reading, so that by the time I got to, you know, first grade, and I'd give just a lot of love to Miss McGuire because she was like the opposite of my kindergarten teacher. And like she really, like, you know, kind of took me in and really was like just supportive, so that, you know, I went from, you know, functionally illiterate for like relative to what you're supposed to be for a kindergartner, and, you know, at risk of being held back, to, you know, basically within a year being ahead of the curve and kind of being like one of the more advanced students. And, you know, once I found reading, is what I was doing all the time. I was like reading, writing like little, you know, comics to myself. I was helping my mom clean, you know, my parents' house a little while back, and she just stumbled across this old box of, you know, like my kindergarten, you know, little comics.
Oh my
And it
god.
was just, I had this series, Animal Man versus Pochar. And I was just like, oh wow, look at little woke Bruce at the time, like, you know. So I guess I could see how all this happened, but yeah. And, you know, I was just reading Goosebumps and eventually like Star Wars books and stuff, and, you know, so I guess in a way it was like a blessing in disguise. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone to have, you know, have your teacher try and screw you over for your life, but
In kindergarten.
yeah.